During a family gathering, my daughter-in-law told me to clean the kitchen while everyone else ate. When I entered the dining room later, my seat had been given to the dog. I quietly took a photo, knowing what I was about to send to her employer. I'm Martha. I'm 63. I raised 2 boys, mostly on my own after my husband passed from a heart attack when they were still young. We lived in a small home in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It wasn't much, but I worked hard, gave my boys everything I could, and did my best to raise them to be good men. I thought I had succeeded, until I watched one of them let his wife treat me like I was garbage. David, my oldest, has always been the quieter one, the dependable son. He got good grades, never broke curfew, and helped around the house without being asked. When he met Cassandra, he brought her over for dinner like any proud boyfriend would. She was tall, thin, with this sharp way of speaking, like every word had to be precise and calculated. I remember she barely touched the food I cooked that night. She said, "I'm trying to eat clean." I offered her a salad. She nodded but never said thank you. Over the years, I tried to win her over. I never wanted to be that mother-in-law who overstepped. I kept my visits short, brought little things I knew David liked, sent gifts for the kids. But Cassandra always had a wall up, a coldness. She didn't like my cooking, said it was too heavy. She didn't want my help with the kids, said they had their routines. She didn't want me around holidays unless I followed her plan to the letter. Once, I brought stuffing I made from scratch to Thanksgiving. She pulled me aside and whispered, "I already had a menu planned. Next time ask first." Like I was a stranger. David never stood up for me. He'd say things like, "She's just stressed," or "Don't take it personal." But it was personal. Everything changed last April. David was turning 39, and they decided to host a big birthday dinner at their house. I offered to help. Cassandra told me, "Just bring whatever you want. We've got most of it handled." I knew what that meant. I wasn't included in the real planning. Still, I spent the day before making my homemade lasagna, David's favorite since he was 12. I baked a triple-layer chocolate cake from scratch. It took hours, but I didn't mind. I just wanted to do something nice for my son. When I got to their house, the place was packed. Her parents were there, a couple from their church, neighbors. It was loud and busy. I walked in holding the cake, but Cassandra didn't even greet me. She was already directing people like a manager at a hotel. She saw me and said, "Oh, good, you're here. Can you help in the kitchen? Just keep it moving, clean up as we go. I want the food area to stay tidy." I stood there for a second. No hug. No thank you. Just a task. But I nodded and went to the kitchen. I put my cake on the counter. She had moved it to the side within minutes to make room for some store-bought cupcakes. For the next hour, I was scrubbing pans, organizing trays, wiping counters while the laughter from the dining room grew louder. I glanced over and saw everyone seated around the table, glasses clinking, plates full. I assumed I'd be called in soon, but no one did. So I wiped my hands and quietly walked into the dining room. That's when I saw it. My seat at the table, where I had always sat at family gatherings, had been given to the dog. Their golden retriever, Poppy, was curled up on the chair with a special cushion, like a little throne. In front of her was a silver bowl filled with scraps of turkey and gravy. Her napkin was folded next to it. People were laughing. One of Cassandra's friends said, "She's part of the family too." David chuckled. I just stood there. No one offered me a seat. No one even looked up. I felt something hot in my chest. Not anger, humiliation. I was invisible. I had cleaned, brought food, stood on my feet, and I wasn't even worth a chair at the table. I quietly walked back into the kitchen and pulled out my phone. I took a photo of the dog sitting in my place, her paws resting on the cushion. I didn't say a word. Not that night. Not the next day. But something inside me turned cold. I was done. I started digging. I knew Cassandra worked in HR for a big medical staffing firm. She never let us forget it, always bragging about her power meetings and coaching sessions. I went online and started looking into her company's ethics policy. It was all very public. One thing caught my eye: a strict clause about professional conduct, even outside work. Employees were expected to maintain professionalism, especially those in HR roles. Then I remembered Cassandra's social media. I looked her up. There it was, post after post of her joking about working from home with wine in hand, mocking older employees for not being adaptable, and even sharing confidential work scenarios, without names, but still against policy. One post read, "Just had to coach another dinosaur through Excel. Retirement is calling." I kept going. I found reviews from ex-employees that hinted at wrongful terminations. I cross-referenced names and dates. 3 older employees had been pushed out last year under Cassandra's performance review initiatives. I gathered everything, screenshots, saved posts, her comments, even photos of her bragging about Wine Wednesdays during work hours. And then I sent it all to her company's ethics board, to the general HR complaint email, and to the VP listed on their public site. I didn't use my name. I just submitted the evidence. I never told David, but I watched and waited, because I knew it was only a matter of time before Cassandra got a taste of what it feels like to be told you don't belong at the table. About 3 weeks after I submitted the complaint, I noticed Cassandra started posting less on her social media. The usual bragging and snide corporate humor stopped. One day, she posted a vague quote about trusting the process and cleansing negativity. Then silence. I didn't reach out. I let it sit. Then David called me out of the blue on a Thursday night. "Hey Mom," he said, voice tight. "Cassandra's going through a weird situation at work. There's been some kind of anonymous complaint. It's serious. HR is doing a full investigation." I kept my voice steady. "That's awful. Do they know who sent it?" He paused. "No, but it was pretty detailed. They say someone submitted screenshots of her social posts from a private group and emails. She's really shaken up." I just said, "That must be hard," and left it at that. Inside, I felt not joy, but something like balance. Over the next few weeks, David called more often. Not about me. About her. About how distant she was acting. How stressed. How she wasn't sleeping. That she was suddenly not invited to company leadership meetings. Her mentor at the firm stopped returning her texts. Cassandra had always strutted around like she ran the world. But now, the cracks were showing. And the thing was, the shift didn't stop at work. She started pulling away from everyone. From her own parents. From their church group. From David. One day, David told me she had gone through his phone. Accused him of not defending her enough. She was unraveling. Then something happened that changed everything. David came to my house unannounced. I hadn't seen him in person since that dinner. He stood in my doorway holding a Tupperware of lasagna I'd given him weeks ago. His eyes were red. "Can I come in?" he asked. I nodded. We sat in my kitchen. He didn't say much at first. Just stared at the counter like he was seeing it for the first time. Finally, he said, "I think I messed up." I didn't say anything. I waited. "She's not who I thought she was. She talks down to people. She controls everything. She doesn't let me breathe." He paused. "And I let her treat you like crap." That cracked something in me. He kept talking. Told me about the fights. The way she had cut him off from old friends. How everything had to be about her reputation. How she had cried for hours when her manager placed her on probation while they continued the investigation. And how, for the first time, he wasn't sure he wanted to stay married. I didn't gloat. I didn't even tell him the truth. I just listened. But I knew something else was coming. Because a person like Cassandra doesn't go down quietly. And sure enough, a week later, I got a call from an unknown number. When I answered, it was her. "Martha," she said sharply, "I know what you did." I didn't say a word. "I know you sent that stuff to my job." Who else would have known about my posts or those employees? Still, I stayed silent. "You're destroying my family," she snapped. "You're jealous. You've always been jealous." That made me laugh. I didn't mean to. It just came out. "I gave you years to treat me with respect," I said quietly. "You treated me like dirt. You let a dog sit in my chair, Cassandra." She went quiet, then hung up. After that, the tension exploded. David moved out within a month. Cassandra tried to control the story, painting herself as a victim to friends and family, but people had already noticed the shift. The coldness, the cracks. At church, people started whispering. Her own parents pulled away, especially after the company quietly asked Cassandra to step down and take an early transition package. She was effectively fired, but not publicly. They wanted it clean. The woman who once bragged about coaching others was now unemployed, isolated, and abandoned by her carefully curated social circle. And I was just getting started. By summer, David was living in a rented apartment across town. It wasn't much, bare walls, secondhand furniture, but he said it felt like peace. He saw the kids on weekends. Cassandra didn't fight him much on custody. At first, I thought that was strange. But then I found out why. Cassandra had started seeing someone else. A coworker. A younger man. She didn't even try to hide it. Pictures started showing up online. Wine tastings. Beach weekends. She even posted a photo of them with a caption, "New beginnings with someone who gets me." David saw it too. He was crushed. He hadn't wanted the marriage to end like that. He'd wanted counseling, time, maybe a second chance. But she was already out the door. Probably had been for months. I knew then that the job loss wasn't the worst thing that happened to Cassandra. It was losing control. She couldn't spin the narrative anymore. People talked. Parents at school whispered. Someone even asked David if she had really been fired. But the real twist came from a direction none of us saw coming. The 3 employees she had pushed out at her old job, the ones I had researched, one of them filed a formal EEOC complaint. They referenced a hostile work environment, age discrimination, and inappropriate HR conduct. Guess whose name was mentioned all over the documents? Cassandra's. David called me late one night and told me a lawyer from the EEOC had contacted him. Apparently, they needed to verify a few of her past statements and employment history. He didn't know the full details, but he said, "Mom, this goes way deeper than we thought." I didn't say anything, but I knew. I had submitted anonymous documentation during my complaint. Every single thing I'd uncovered, not just the wine posts. I had listed dates, names, performance reviews she wrote, and statements from her social media where she bragged about getting rid of dead weight. I knew what the EOC was holding, and it was heavy. The fallout came slowly. Her severance package was revoked. The company refused to give her a recommendation. She tried applying elsewhere but kept getting "we'll be in touch" emails that never led anywhere. Her name was quietly flagged in background checks. By fall, Cassandra was back living with her parents in Mountjoy, a small suburb nearby. Word was she didn't even have a car anymore. Sold it for cash. But the part that surprised me most? She started calling my house phone. At first, I didn't pick up. She never left a message. Then one day, I did. "Martha," her voice cracked. "I just wanted to talk. Please." I listened. Let her talk. She rambled about stress, about being misunderstood, about how hard it was to be a woman in leadership, how she felt attacked, alone, how people turned on her. Then she said something that nearly made me drop the phone. "I know I wasn't kind to you. I know that dinner was wrong. I was overwhelmed, but I never thought it would lead to this." I kept my tone steady. "You gave a dog my seat, Cassandra. And you never looked back." She was quiet for a long time. Then she whispered, "I'm sorry." It didn't fix anything. Not the years of coldness. Not the humiliation. Not the fact that she ruined people's careers just because they were older or slower or didn't fit her perfect image. But it meant something. Because the woman who once acted like she was above everyone was finally beneath her own choices. And the revenge? It was still unfolding. After that call, I didn't hear from Cassandra again for a while. Not directly, anyway. But her name started circling in small ways. Someone at my church mentioned her in passing, how that HR woman from the staffing company was now seen volunteering at a local food drive. Another person, a friend of a friend, said she'd applied for a position at their nonprofit but was rejected after a background check. It was like watching someone walk around with invisible stains on their clothes. She looked fine from a distance, but people noticed something off once they got close. David filed for divorce officially in October. He asked me to go with him to court, not for legal reasons, just for support. Cassandra showed up in a pantsuit that looked 2 sizes too big. Her hair was dull.
No makeup.
Nothing like the woman who used to flaunt her status in every room she walked into. She didn't fight anything.
Not alimony.
Not joint custody. Nothing. I think she was trying to salvage what little pride she had left. By then, even her parents had stepped back. They were tired of cleaning up her messes. David told me they blamed him at first for not protecting her from workplace politics, but eventually even they had to accept the truth. She had built her world on power, perception, and image, and every part of that collapsed. Meanwhile, I started babysitting the grandkids more often. At first, they were quiet around me. I think Cassandra told them I was too strict or not modern enough. But kids are smart. They see who shows up, who listens, who cares. One afternoon, my granddaughter asked, "Grandma, why don't you eat dinner with us at Daddy's house?" I just smiled and said, "I do now." Because I did. David made space for me again, not out of guilt, but because he saw me. Really saw me. Maybe for the first time in years. But the final part of the story? It didn't come from Cassandra. It came from one of the women she pushed out, Margaret. She tracked me down. She'd somehow figured out I was the anonymous person who submitted the complaint. She called me, nervous but grateful. Said her EEOC case was gaining traction. That her lawyer wanted to talk to me, even unofficially. I agreed. I met with him at a diner in town. Gave him everything I had. My timeline. Screenshots. The way Cassandra had laughed at firing people in her own words online. And as I handed him the folder I'd built in silence over months, I realized something. This wasn't just about me. Cassandra had tried to bury more than just my dignity that night. She had built a career out of stepping on people like me. Older. Quieter. The ones who weren't flashy enough to fight back. But I fought back. And I wasn't done yet. 3 months after I met with Margaret's lawyer, the lawsuit went public. It was a quiet release, just a court filing online, but people noticed. A local journalist who covers workplace law picked up the story. The article didn't name Cassandra, but anyone who worked with her knew. It described the toxic culture, the HR restructuring, the age discrimination, and the social media evidence used against the company. It blew up on LinkedIn. Dozens of ex-employees began commenting, sharing similar stories. I was pushed out for being outdated. I remember when we were told to get more youthful energy in the office. And most damning. She said I didn't belong. Now look where she is. Cassandra disappeared completely after that. Her social accounts went dark. Her phone number changed. She wasn't in Lancaster anymore. I heard through someone she was renting a room in Harrisburg, working part-time at a boutique that didn't know her past. David finalized the divorce. He got 50-50 custody, no drama. He started dating again, slowly, and even told me once that he was ashamed he hadn't protected me sooner. I told him the truth. That I'd made peace with it, because I finally stood up for myself. One night, while tucking in my grandson, he looked up at me and said, "Grandma, Daddy says you're brave." I didn't cry right then. But later, in the quiet of my own home, I did. Because for years, I had let someone treat me like I didn't matter. Like I was just an old woman in the corner. But I took it back. Not with shouting. Not with a scene. I did it with silence. With truth. With action. And the last piece of revenge? That came in the form of a letter. I received it in the mail 6 weeks after the lawsuit went public. It was handwritten. No return address. Inside, it said, "Martha, I lost everything.
My job.
My reputation. My marriage. I used to think I was better than people like you. But you were stronger than I ever imagined. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know you were right, and I was wrong." Cassandra sat with that letter for a long time. Then I folded it in half, put it back in the envelope, and slipped it into a drawer next to my photographs. Not because I needed to keep it, but because sometimes the best revenge isn't what you do to someone. It's what they do to themselves after you take your power back. And I did. Every bit of it.